Let's move on to the runner-ups from last year. The San Francisco 49ers going 12-5 last year. Their win total this year, 11.5. Some key losses, a lot amongst the defensive line. Eric Armstead, Chase Young, Javon Kinlaw, Randy Gregory, and then Sam Darnold. Key adds, Malik Collins, Leonard Floyd, Yator Gross-Matos, Devondre Campbell. So a lot of defensive linemen coming in. Reagan, I know you have the Niners making the playoffs, but what's their win total going to be this year?
Yeah, I got them going 13-4, so they're going to have a good year. I believe that ends up putting them at the 1 seed for me. So, I mean, this is just a team similar to the Cowboys, just without the choke jobs, I guess, but where they just dominate the teams they should in the regular season. They're putting up crazy numbers. I mean, when they've got to go against a bad team, you can expect 40 points. I mean, and the crazy thing is last year, and the reason I go off a lot of last year is they didn't really lose a ton. And you just highlighted all the guys they lost, they kind of replaced with guys of the same tier. I mean, Eric Armstead's going to hurt, but the rest of them you kind of replaced with guys that are in that same tier. But I mean, this team averaged 28.9 points per game, and defensively, they only let up 17.5. So those splits are crazy. I mean, that's plus 12 differential almost there.
Yeah.
That's huge. I mean, they're top 3 against the run. They were top 5 in takeovers and turnovers. I mean, they were just elite on both sides. They're one of the few teams that were elite offensively and defensively, just like the Chiefs, elite offensively and defensively. That's why we saw both teams in the Super Bowl, and that's why I'd say there's a very good chance we see both teams going very far again this year. But Brock Purdy, best quarterback in the league in terms of QBR last year. I don't know if a lot of people realize that. Like, we say how good he was, but he really was that good. I mean, passing yards over 4,200. Ayuk, I know we talked about a little bit earlier, but it's pretty clear to me at this point, and it should be to most people, that Debo's more the name where people have that conversation. But Ayuk is the one in this offense. It's not a 1A, 1B. It's a 1 and a 2. And Pearsall will probably be that 3. But Ayuk is clear-cut number 1 wide receiver in this offense. 7 All-Pros last year is freaking crazy. I mean, just speaks to how elite they were. And then one more thing I saw, Fred Warner and Drake Greenlaw both having over 120 tackles is ridiculous. I mean, I find it crazy when one guy does that on a team, but to have 2 linebackers that are just making that many tackles. And just one negative I can say, Nick Bosa had a major step back last year. I saw he only had 10.5 sacks, which is good for most players, but not a guy not for a guy who you're talking about as the best edge rusher. So if he wants to get back in that conversation, he's got to be closer to 20 than 10. But yeah, I still got him going 13-4. I mean, McCaffrey's going to be the engine that runs this offense, and I don't see Brock Purdy taking a step back. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like if they lose Ayuk, though.
Yeah, I got 12-5. You know, not a lot of negatives here. We're still waiting for the Ayuk drama to unfold at the time of this recording, so we'll see. I mean, the Niners, led by Kyle Shanahan, he's an offensive genius. They led the league in yards after the catch the last 6 seasons, so he can really scheme up his guys to get open, and their playmakers are so good after the catch. You know, McCaffrey last year, over 2,000 yards, 21 touchdowns. What more has to be said? The offensive line is good. Trent Williams is the best left tackle in football. George Kittle is the best blocking tight end in football. So McCaffrey is almost a lock to score every game. He will be again this year. Like Reagan highlighted earlier, Purdy led the league in QBR, also yards per attempt and touchdown rate. The only knock on Purdy, which he still hasn't quieted these doubts, is when the Niners are actually losing games, how can he perform if he's dropping back to pass? He's 22nd in passer rating when they're losing games, and that drops to 33rd when they're losing in the second half. Not ideal. When you start playing those games in January, February, you're not just steamrolling through everyone in the regular season. That's when it's going to matter. So Purdy did have some nice moments last year when they were down, but still hasn't quieted those doubts. They lost 3 of their 4 games last season against top 10 defenses, and Purdy was not nearly as good. So that's another thing I'm keeping an eye on this year, especially if Ayuk's not in the picture. Defensively, yeah, I mean, Fred Warner, arguably the best linebacker in football. You know, they got a couple guys recovering from injury that I'm really interested to see when they come back. Drake Greenlaw, that Achilles, that crazy injury in the Super Bowl, just jumping up and down before going out in the field. Talisu Funga was a stud before he tore his knee up, so hopefully he can get back soon in the back ends. They added a bunch of guys to the defensive line rotation. Malik Collins is solid, had 5 sacks in Houston last year. Leonard Floyd has averaged 10 sacks per season over his last 4, so very underrated. I like that pickup opposite Bosa. Travarius Ward stud at corner. He's looked really good since they brought him over from the Chiefs. It just sucks for him that he lost the Chiefs in the Super Bowl last year. And Jair Brown, 3rd-round pick last year, showed a lot of promise at safety. So I like the pieces they got on defense. Just when did they get Greenlaw and Hufanga back? But yeah, I mean, for me, I'm just a little bit concerned about how the offense is going to look without Ayuk, but still, there's too many guys here. They'll still be successful. 12 wins, easy lock for the playoffs, minus 500, slam it.
Yeah, and I will say something that kind of confused me a little bit from an outsider perspective. Why did they fire Steve Wilkes as the DC? I mean, he didn't get
I
picked up
don't
elsewhere,
know.
but to me, it's weird because they had one of the best defenses last year. You can make a case the best defense. Obviously, like you just highlighted, it's in the Super Bowl. Yeah, they let up a lot of points to the Chiefs, but you lose one of your best linebackers to a freak injury early on, and then Hufanga didn't even play. So, you're dealing with injuries. It's not like you got the full roster out there. I mean, 17 and a half points a game allowed. That's elite in today's NFL. I mean, it's not like back in the day where it should be lower if you want to be elite, you got to be lower, like almost 10 points a game. So in an offensive friendly league, that's pretty freaking good. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not super locked in with the 49ers like that I'd have a fan's perspective of why he's gone, but that's one that really was a head scratcher to me.
Yeah, I thought Shanahan said it was for schematic reasons. He wanted to run the defense differently, which I don't know if I'm buying it. There could be some behind the scenes. I'm not sure, but it was strange when you lose in the Super Bowl and the defense was that good.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that's gotten the short end of the stick a few times now. I mean, go back to Arizona getting fired after one season, pretty rare. Obviously, the Panthers coached them up. When he came in as an intern, started to play well, didn't even get the job then. After the fact, they go with Frank Wright. So he's a guy, it seems that he just keeps getting the short end of the stick.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, your MVP for the Niners, Reagan.
Yeah, it's McCaffrey. I mean, dude had over 2,000 all-purpose yards last year. Touchdown machine. I mean, one of the few guys that was like negative 300 every week to score a touchdown anytime. When it was the first touchdown, he was one of the closest guys to being even odds. Kind of hated him getting on the wheel because I'm a greedy whore. And when you get plus 230 first touchdown, it's like,
You're like, doesn't really get me excited.
I don't get excited for that.
I need
it's
a plus
like,
2,800 Michael Mayer.
Yeah. Give me some real dough here. I don't want to throw my mortgage on this one, but the guy's going to be a stud as long as barring injuries. He's going to probably put up another 2,000-yard season. The touchdowns will be there. I mean, it seems like every time they get to the red zone, he's either getting a carry or they're scheming something up for him to get the ball in his hands. I mean, 7 receiving touchdowns as a running back just speaks to how dynamic he is.
Yeah, it's McCaffrey, dude. How do you argue it? He had 21 touchdowns last year. He's a beast. He's clear and cut the number 1 running back in all of football. He does it in the receiving game as well. It's Christian McCaffrey. X Factor, Reagan.
Yeah, I mean, you could go a couple different options here, but I would say Brock Purdy. I mean, like you highlighted earlier, can he get it done when they're down, when they're going against that top tier competition? Yet to be proven. Lost to the Chiefs, obviously that freak injury to the Eagles. So can he finally take that next step and get them the Super Bowl win? They have the roster to get there. We know that. He has all the pieces around him. They're not paying him anything, so he's the biggest X factor here is if he can take him to that next level because it's always the quarterback that's got to be that final piece that you need to push you across the finish line. And they got him, but he's got to prove that he can be him.
Yeah, I mean, Purdy's a good pick. Purdy really, his only concern for me is when trailing. He's shown that he can run the Shanahan offense better than any quarterback that's played it so far. So I think he's legit. I don't think he's a top 8 quarterback. Certainly not talent-wise, but he's really good mentally. He could really process the defense. He gets the ball out at the right time. He's accurate, so he runs the ship really well. For me, I went Ricky Pearsall as the X factor with an asterisk that is assuming Brandon Ayuk is traded. Pearsall stepping into the number 2 role. Some people thought he was a reach a little bit. Never really put it together in college, but has great physical tools. He's long, he's fast. He's made some highlight reel catches. If he's thrust in that Ayuk role, can this offense still hum on all cylinders like it did last year? Or do they take a significant step back? If Ricky Pearsall can live up to that first-round draft status, it's going to make losing Ayuk hurt a lot less. Rookie of the year, Reagan.
I don't know, because obviously Ricky Pearsall just went down with the injury, but I mean, they don't really have a ton of other guys there. I mean, Obviously, they drafted Renardo Green out of Florida State. I know Dominic Pooney, the tackle out of Kansas, they drafted is projected. They're moving him to right guard, I believe. I saw
Yes.
that he's a projected starter. So I guess I'd say him just because it's a good offensive line already. So if he can come in and be another staple there, really establish a run, and it's easy to look good when you have weapons like that around you and you're putting up 30-something points a game. It's easy to hide it because I remember a guy like Lincoln Tomlinson, he excelled there. Then he came to the Jets and was ass. Got cut 2 years into his big deal. Now he's on the Rams. So I don't know. I think it's a lot easier to hide it, but I think it's either him or Pearsall. So
yeah, I went Pearsall, Sticky Ricky. I just think he's going to have to play a lot. He's going to get thrust into that starting lineup when Ayuk's gone. Ronaldo Green, like he was good last year in coverage, really good, but it was his 5th year. Took him to his 5th year to break out, so not super encouraging there. I don't love Pooney. He was not very good at run blocking in college. He does have 5-position flexibility though, so he should get on the field, but I'm not sold on him as a player. And then Isaac Arendo, the fast guy that they got, the running back, ran the 4.3, one of the fastest running backs in the league now, but the Niners have just not had a good history of drafting running backs and them hitting. So I'm not really sold on him either. I don't really love this draft class, to be honest with you. I'm going to go Ricky Sticky out of Florida, baby. Go Gators. All right, Drock. What's the lock? Sticky Ricky.
Drock's last
why do
pick
you
of the
do,
night.
Why do you do like the ESPN rumble?
Who got traded?
ESPN. You just
who got traded?
Like the breaking
Did
news.
Brandon Ayuk just get traded? Did Brandon Ayuk just get traded?
Dave's gonna have a Brandon Ayuk stat right here, I bet.
No,
we're all saying he's about to get traded.
I would love it if he was getting traded.
This one I absolutely love. I will be throwing my hard-earned money on this because, Colin, we discussed this before in our living room, but the San Francisco 49ers to score 1+ rushing TD in every regular season game at plus 2,200. I don't have stats to back it up. With Christian McCaffrey on the goddamn field, it could happen every game. And I mean, would you say, Colin? He hasn't scored a touchdown. What?
I believe he's played 29 regular season games with the Niners. Or no, maybe 29 total games. And he's only not scored in 6 of them. But also with the Niners, you have the threat of Debo rushing one in as well. Or even Purdy. A little scramble.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate that at all. I mean, obviously, you'd think it would hit. All it takes is for one fluke game for it to not hit. But, I mean, I'm looking at it right now. McCaffrey had a rushing touchdown in every game, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the games. But that didn't mean they didn't get a rushing touchdown still.
Plus 2,200. That's crazy. I'd say no if it was plus 5, but plus 2,200.
Yeah, they did against the Browns. I could try to look real quick. So, yeah, I mean, obviously when your running back's getting a touch, with McCaffrey, you know he's going to get a high volume. So at least 5 games left. They did it against the Browns. I mean, I could try to look at this quick.
They also, they got out to so many big leads last year that even if McCaffrey had a receiving touchdown, the backup comes in and runs one in at the end. That's always in play as well because his team scores a ton of points.
Yep, they did it against Washington. They definitely did it, bro.
It's juicy. Plus 2,200.
Did it. It's very juicy. I mean, the team had, let's see how many rushing touchdowns they had. I mean, McCaffrey alone had 14. They had 27 rushing touchdowns last year.
Wow.
So Debo had 5 of them, bro.
Yeah. The threat of Debo being there just makes it that much better of a bet.
Yeah.
Especially if there's no IU, because they might have to use him more in that sense. Get the ball in his hands.
I'm assuming they did it last year. I mean, I obviously could be missing a game, but I'm assuming they did it last year, right? I mean, probably should have had you look that up prior, but still with the odds, even if they didn't, it's really just banking on one fluke game, which it doesn't look like they had.
It's worth a dart throw. All right, Reagan, you want to rip this draft now?